Ladies and gentlemen, it's a special week this week. Sorry, I didn't warn you I'd be going
Oh, you
glass.
left
And
me hanging on the
it's a
sunglasses, Smart.
special week
Oh,
this week, ladies and
oh.
gentlemen. It is the birthday of the greatest country in the world. We're talking about the greatest sport in the world, the NFL. Howard, would you be surprised if I told you that factually the country of the United States of America has won every single Super Bowl since it was started?
Oh, really? Every single
Everyone.
year? The
Undefeated.
USA won?
USA. USA.
USA.
USA. Undefeated. Undefeated. They trying to take games. They're putting them all over the world, but Super Bowl lives here. Fantasy football lives here at Fantasy Alarm. And today, I'm in my happy place because we are doing a best ball draft with the family. And as always, we're bringing on a couple special guests with us. And because it's such a special day of celebration, we're bringing on Eric Romoff from the Pros with Joes to celebrate a little
Nice.
charity. And we're bringing on Josh Hudson of Club Fantasy FFL and also the Women of Fantasy Football to celebrate a little diversity, a little equality. It's America, baby. It's football. Let's go. So here's what we're doing. Best ball draft. Before we get to that, Bender, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing real well, man. Super psyched to be here. There's lots of stuff going on here. Doing all the stuff that's popping out for the fantasy football draft guide over at Fantasy Alarm has just got me like crazy hyped. And I'll tell you what, if you guys don't have our draft guide yet, well, here you go. Let me help you all out here, and let me give you this QR code, this beautiful draft guide. What you can do if you don't want to zap that QR code because maybe that's how the government gets you. You can just go to fantasyalarm.com/draft and take a tour through the draft guide. Look at everything that we've got out right now, everything that's coming out over the course of the next 30 days. All right, we're going to have everything loaded up for you before August hits because that's when most people start with like all of their stuff. But rankings, cheat sheets, everything like that. Boom. Here you go. You want 4th of July fireworks? We've got 4th of July fireworks right now. Get yourself a copy of the draft guide. And I'll tell you what, like you could even, like if you don't want to, if you're thinking, hey, I love the draft guide. I love the cheat sheets, but I want more from Fantasy Alarm. Well, then guess what? You can get the All-Pro subscription over at fantasyalarm.com. Zap this QR code or go to fantasyalarm.com/win. Use the promo code Let's Go. We'll give you 50% off your first month. And that includes like every sport, betting, DFS, season long, the draft guide, the cheat sheets, all of that. Half price for the first month.
It pays. Our famous segment. I'll tell you this, it pays for itself before the season even starts because it's not just the football stuff. You get the baseball stuff. You get Mike Ionone's MMA, which he destroys, right? You get golf, you get everything. So it's like before you even get to football, when the real moolah is made by the big dogs, you've already paid for it. So it's all set. But enough about that, enough promos. Everybody knows they need to get the draft guide if they want to dominate. If you want to do these with us, get the All Pro membership and you can join us in these drafts. Howard Bender's going to join right now, and we're going to get it rocking and rolling. We'll get the draft board up for you. What we're going to do is we're going to do a 12-person contained best ball draft, right? And the beauty of this is it's a $5 draft, so we get some skin in the game. The early rounds of these drafts are damn near identical to what your regular leagues are going to look like. So you get an idea of ADP. And also for you folks that play in super flex leagues, maybe the Scott Fish Bowl, every team has to draft 2 or 3 quarterbacks, 2 or 3 tight ends. So you get an idea of what's going on there too. It just gives you a good feel for these positions and what's going on. And we've been doing these kind of all summer. We're going to do them right up until redraft season. And then it's like, by the time you get to redraft season, if you do a bunch of these, you're like Neo staring into the Matrix. It's like everyone else is seeing ones and zeros and ADP. And you're just like, you're just like, I can see the steak. I can taste it. So here we are. Let's
Can
get
we talk about how seamless it's now? Like how good I've gotten with the tech work here. Draft board's up. Draft is starting. Everything's going.
We're
Josh
good,
Hudson's got the first pick. What a chump.
While you were gone last week, I forgot to play the intro, Howard. And then we talked about swords for like a full 10 minutes. So it's good to have you back on the stream. All right, here we go. We're off and running. First pick, Josh Hudson. Second, me. Third, the football diva, who I believe this is second draft for him. Then we have Icy, a regular, Howard Bender, a regular, Rowdy, and Dunn, regular. Luke, the Fantasy 5, saw that Josh Hudson was going to be in. That's Ryan Weiss. He was like, I got to draft against Josh. He doesn't really play best ball, which I thought that was hilarious. So welcome to the draft. Drafting against your friends and foes. Nothing more fun than that. We got Dr. JD, who always drafts with us. Fantasy Nav at the 10th spot. That's Eric Romoff. The Hamburglar coming in at 11. And then the classic Howard. We got Poncho at the last one, Pontrio. So gang's all here.
The gang is all here. Great to have everybody around. Hit us up in the comment section on the regular. Please, please, please. You know, like you got questions. You want to criticize a pick. You want to criticize a draft. You just want to talk crap about me and Coop. Do it.
Do it.
Up in the comments. Oh, look, I'm on the clock already. Look at me.
On the clock. Yeah. Welcome to questions.
I don't want to auto pick my first one here. All right. I'm good.
You're good. And a good pick as well, especially half PPR. That's the thing. I've been kind of debating Bijan versus Breece Hall, but in best ball half PPR, especially half or standard, I'm Bijan over Breece. If full PPR, then I take Breece a lot. I mean, the number of screens that he gets. For those that didn't see, I wrote a little article where I mentioned it, but Breece Hall last year got 30 screens, which led the league. That's almost 2 free receptions per game. And the prior 2 years, the guy that led the league in screens, Aaron Jones playing with Aaron Rodgers. And the year before that, I was Aaron Jones playing with Aaron Rodgers. So it offers a pretty decent floor, but I completely understand the ceilings for McCaffrey and Bijan. So
sure. But you know what? It's so funny too, because my buddy Jeff Mans from Fantasy Guru, he like totally got in my head. And he knew he was doing it because he knows I'm a diehard Jets fan. When he hit me with the whole Aaron Rodgers leads the NFL in 1-yard touchdown passes, right? Like how many times did you see him like snap the ball, turn, hit Devontae Adams for a 1-yard pass? Like if that does kind of come to life, which it probably will, it's great for Garrett Wilson, but Breece Hall, man, I mean, don't ruin him, Aaron. Don't ruin him.
It's funny. The thing with Rodgers, like, it's not surprising either. Like if you have an egotistical QB that has the green light to call his own number whenever he wants, I'm throwing it. You're right. I'm throwing it. I used to be opposite when in high school. They would call this play called waggle, which was a rollout play where I had the option to throw it or run it. How many times do you think I threw it? How many times do you think I took it myself and ran?
Oh, I would say that you probably took it yourself like 6 out of 10 times and then threw it another 2 out of 10.
Yeah, 8 out of 10 times taking it myself, dude. We had Anthony Sherman on the team. He played fullback for the Chiefs. They were calling 0 designed runs for me. I had to take the runs whenever I got the chance out. I was taking that ball every time. Or if it got
sausage, the sausage.
Man, that kid was a freak as Lord.
The end zone.
Oh, he was unbelievable in high school. That kid came out and pitched in our alumni game, left-handed and right-handed. That's the kind of guy. Ooh. That's the kind of athlete we're talking about. Yeah, there's a great guy too. Shout out him. But yeah, it's kind of tough to get plays dialed up for you when you got that guy on the team. Speaking of having a guy on the team, I think now, right after he makes his pick, would be a good time to bring in our guest. What do you say, Howard?
Oh, Eric Romoff? Come on, bring it. You know, I'm psyched to have him here. It's been a little while since I've had a chance to talk to him. You know, we like tweet chat back and forth. So get him on in here.
Let's get him in. There he is.
¿Cómo están?
¿Cómo están?
Muy bien, amigo. How we doing? So, for those that don't know, Eric Romoff, absolute angel, one of my very favorites. And one thing he does that we want to have you talk about right away, if you don't mind. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about your picks first. We'll talk about charity. You picked at the 10 spot here. Walk us through it, brother.
Yeah, so actually thus far, I haven't been finding myself in 10, 11, 12 all that often. It seems like I'm kind of locked in to like picks 6 through 9. So kind of a different corner of the draft for me. Was pretty happy to see Garrett Wilson sitting there. I like the way that you can stack his Week 17 matchup against the Bills. Now that you guys know how my board is going to unfold, and specifically how those players are most likely available to me in rounds like 3 through 7.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I'm telling you guys, if you're going to take this seriously, you got to think about, I mean, again, this is a contained draft, so the end of season isn't as important, but there's two things you got to think of. You got to think about the schedule itself, bye weeks, things like that. You also got to do what Eric's talking about here, which is think about who's going to be available to you later. If you can find some tight ends or quarterbacks that you like late, it creates so much leverage early on, right? Especially if you're thinking about stacks and things like that. So it's kind of like chess. The better you are at thinking ahead, the better you're going to be at making your early moves, right, Howard?
Absolutely. 100%. Now, listen, we see it here all the time, right? First 8 picks are the chalkiest of chalk picks. It's the same 8 names over and over again. And I kind of look through here. The first couple of rounds, like you said, are pretty much the same. So to me, this affords us the opportunity to let Eric tell everybody, give everybody the rundown here on the Pros with Joes. It's one of my absolute favorites, ride or die with somebody for the entire season. I mean, the last 2 years, I've had such great partners that it's forged friendships as well as like just great fantasy deliciousness. So Eric, do me a favor here, give everybody the rundown because, we obviously it's a charity event and we would love to get as many people involved as possible.
Yeah, so that is probably the distilled version of it, right? We are a charity fantasy football league. You can find us over at Pros with Joes on Twitter. We generally keep it pretty quiet until we open up registration, which should be here in the next few weeks. But really, the way that our tournament is different is twofold. Like you mentioned, Howard, every single one of our pros, our industry expert, is paired up with a co-manager, a Joe, and they ride shotgun and work together all throughout the season. They draft together, they make roster decisions together, they make start decisions together. So it's a real cool kind of reader or fan experience for the everyday player. But like you mentioned, I've heard so many stories of people getting their start in the industry through a connection they made in the tournament, or lifelong friendships being forged through these connections. So it's a real cool way to kind of bring people together. And then the other way that our tournament is different is that every single one of our industry experts is raising money for a cause that they get to choose themselves. It is something that is specifically of interest and of importance to them. Howard, you've been killing it for Northsled the last couple of years. I know that is an organization you work closely with. So we raise money for a ton of different causes, right? If you have a specific fantasy pro that you like their work, you can donate and try to win your way in with them. If you have a specific cause you want to support, we have tons for you to choose out there. So we're pretty excited. We're heading into year 5. And like I said, registration is going to open up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I got a new charity this year. Last time I did it, I was raising money for my buddy Drew McDonald, who had a brain tumor. You guys came through like crazy, and he's doing great. He'll be at the Scott Fishbowl Live draft in Boston this year. So back up and running, hanging out. Shout out to our buddy Meat Mansion. That is his username over when he joins us for these things.
So I think you just like saying his name.
It is funny. So shout out to him. This year, I'm supporting. I got a guy, one of the most legendary scouts from like high school to college scouting, Brandon Huffman, came on our show. Big tight end guy, kind of part of the tight end whispering community. His daughter unfortunately passed away years back from a brain tumor herself. So he created a foundation, the Avery Huffman DIPG Foundation. That's what we're raising money for, to support Brandon, to remember Avery. So if you want to draft with me, or if you just want to support a good cause, that should be up there soon, and you can do that. So that's what we're supporting. Shout out Brandon, shout out Avery.
I love it. All right. Well, now that the first 3 rounds of this best ball draft are over, well, now we can kind of get into the meat and potatoes here and kind of, look at the way it's rolling. Eric, first QB off the board here, Josh Allen. I'll let you make your second pick before I dive in, but I'll give you my, just kind of the rundown here is that, the obvious concerns are, the Bills have tried to get him to, kind of hold back a little bit as far as constantly taking the ball upon himself, constantly taking the responsibilities. Then there's the question of what his weaponry is like. Coop and I will scream Dalton Kincaid's name from the top of the mountains, but Keon Coleman's he's a fun guy to watch interviews with. You've got Curtis Samuel, you've got Khalil Shakir, you got a couple of mice running around there. So, your overall thoughts here as far as where you want to go. As you just say, oh, I wish Stephon Diggs was still with the Bills and I could have paired him up like that. You're not worried
Stephon
about
Diggs isn't
Josh
with the
Allen
Bills
at all,
anymore?
are you?
Wait, what? Yeah, honestly, with that Diggs pick, I'm sitting there reeling from Isaiah Pacheco getting sniped. He went, I think, maybe 10 picks ahead of ADP. I was really hoping to anchor with him in the fourth round, which is kind of a concept that is in conflict, right? Usually you're anchoring around running backs in rounds 1 and 2. But I love how this year sets up for Isaiah Pacheco on what should be a very high-powered Chiefs offense again. So had to zig a little bit. Went with the former connection there, Stephon Diggs. I do think, not by a wide margin, but I do think he'll lead the Texans wide receiver core in fantasy scoring this year. That's obviously another offense you want to get into. And Josh Allen himself, yes, they are looking to kind of tamp back his involvement on the ground. I feel like that's kind of been part of the narrative for him for a few years, and it never really comes to pass. But if it does come to pass this year, all of his wide receiving options, including Dalton Kincaid, are relatively inexpensive. You can go out there and get them fairly readily, right? So I usually don't draft quarterbacks quite this early in season long or redraft formats, but specifically with the price tag and where you can get his primary receivers, I'm actually getting to a lot of Josh Allen this year.
I like it. I'm moving forward. I see through his ban from these drafts. He is killing me every time with taking Jacobs and Mixon. And I'll tell you, I just want to talk about my spot here real quick. I took CeeDee Lamb, and the players that came back to me in the next round, I really wish I took Bijan or Brees. I just didn't I would have felt better about the wide receivers and stuff there. I took Derrick Henry, a guy I don't really take. And wanted to ask about Devon Achane. For me, I would have taken him there at that second round pick if he didn't get sniped right before me. I'm not super worried about the split there. I think that you can have potentially multiple fantasy relevant guys there. Well, Eric, do you like how big are you into making sure you get bell cows versus saying I'll just take good players on good teams here? Like I'll just go and I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round. I'll take Devon Achane. Like, where are you at with that? Do you avoid those guys? Or are you cool with taking those guys?
Yeah, I think to the core of your question, it's kind of a tiebreaker for me, right? Like I think that there is value to someone having the majority of the workload to themselves, right? But it's not something that's going to be my North Star in terms of steering and informing all of my decision, right? You used two examples perfectly. Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane were among the only two running back rooms last year that had two different players finish inside of the top 15 in fantasy points. That would be obviously David Montgomery to go along with Jahmyr Gibbs. And then we saw Mostert's prolific touchdown season in Miami. A lot of that has to do with the point you were making, right? Good players on very good offenses tend to have pretty good fantasy seasons, right? So, you can't kind of, get lost in the sauce too much and let that fall apart. With Devon Achane in particular, the price tag concerns me a bit, right? Like I think you have to find another kind of ceiling type of season for him to get back to value. And just on the whole, that's kind of a risky proposition, right? You think about like Calvin Ridley from last year, right? A guy that was being drafted at his ceiling and, had an okay season on the whole, but didn't live up to that expectation, right? So, I'm getting some Achane, but mainly where I'm just drafting Dolphins and stacking up that side of the ball.
Well, Eric, I'm going to let you make your pick here. I don't want you to get auto picked. I'll turn to Coop while you're making your pick. Rowdy, 357. It's our girl Ann Dunn. Love her so much. What do you think about this? Kelsey, Kincaid, double tapping the top 5 tight ends. And then, on top of that, it's got Waddle, got Samuel. I'm not worried about like waiting on the running back. But I'm looking at this, and it's like, if there's a flex position, I don't see why you don't have 2 top 5 tight ends. And for that same token, you're also taking away, you're stealing from somebody else.
Right. Not to mention in this format, you have to draft 2 or 3 anyway. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned from Evan Engram last year when he had the 4th most receptions of any player in the league, 2nd most of all time for a tight end. And we've learned it from Travis Kelce and these guys, and Mark Andrews, who had a top 5 tight end season of all time, that these guys can blow wide receiver 3s and 4s out of the water. And at this part of the draft, we are drafting wide receiver 3s. I mean, I had Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews in my queue, and while I was talking, and auto drafted Tank Dell after they both got taken by Josh Hudson. So I've already drafted a wide receiver 3 on his own team, right? So you look around and say, why not take a guy that could be the focal point of his offense? Every player that Rowdy has drafted so far through 5 rounds, you could argue they are the focal point of the offense, or at least one of the top 2, like Jalen Waddle, obviously with Tyreek Hill. But these guys are all clear focal points, whereas now we're getting into some guys like, I love Jaden Reed. You love Jaden Reed, but if he has the same role he had last year, he's not playing a full snap share, right? We're seeing the second running back on teams go. We're seeing the second wide receiver on teams go. Why not take Kincaid if he could lead that team in targets? Obviously, Kelce could lead his team, and it definitely puts the pressure on the rest of us. I'm feeling it right here, so we'll have to see. I think I'm already into wait on tight end to go yin yang mode here. Eric, what's your strategy typically on tight end? Well, I mean, don't give us any specific players because you haven't drafted one yet, but I noticed you haven't drafted one. Do you find yourself taking one of the top 5, 6 guys, or do you usually wait?
Yeah, I find myself in that market, that top 5 market, fairly often, right? A lot of times I'm drafting in larger tournaments, so it's really just informed by the types of stacks and correlated runbacks that I'm looking for. But generally speaking, following that yin yang approach to a T, right? It is time tested. It's something that you stump about for a reason. So yeah, I'm actually going a little bit later here. Obviously, I telegraphed my intention for targeting Bills, and Dalton Kincaid promptly went 4 picks ahead of me. So now
they're watching. You got to be careful because they're watching.
Oh,
yeah,
Rowdy steals Richardson from me.
Yeah.
Rowdy.
Well, you have gotten a lot of Richardson and Murray, and there you go. You take.
Well, I mean, I got to do it. I was gonna. You know what? In all honesty, and let me ask you this one, Coop, because I was gonna take Richardson with this next pick, and then if it came back around to me and Murray was still there, I was gonna double tap the QB spot.
Yeah, Murray wasn't gonna be there because I had 2 guys in my queue. Now they're gone. So now I'm kind of reeling here, blowing in the wind. While I make my pick, why don't we bring in our second guest here? A guest that he's going to be making his picks soon. Actually, you know what? Let's let him make his picks first.
Yeah, he needs like all the time to like sit and really think about it beforehand, right?
I'm taking my favorite player. That's what I'm doing.
Can't distract him.
Can't distract him.
We'll
bring him in momentarily. I'm taking Evan Engram, and again. You look at what they had set up last year. I know Christian Kirk was hurt for a bit, but Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Evan Engram, Zay Jones, what they have this year with essentially Christian Kirk and Evan Engram, and then a rookie and Gabe Davis, even though I do like Brian Thomas, like there's no reason that he can't do something similar again, especially with our boy Doug Peterson. Shout out Doug Peterson from the entire tight end community. Hey, round of applause for a guy that just
we love you.
Like, I think he has an alarm on his phone that every 15 minutes goes off and says, "All right, tight end screen," right? Going all the way back to Ertz and Goddard. Nothing better than free real estate. So I'll take that all day long, and I'll take asymmetrical hamstrings.
Asymmetrical hamstrings, which is, by the way, the new name for my band.
That's right, dude. Asymmetrical hamstrings. Asymmetrical upside as well. Well, I see him chuckling in the green room, so why don't we bring him out here? A guy that said he doesn't play a lot of best ball, yet has been crushing this draft. Somehow we let him stack Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson.
Can't thank you enough for that, by the way.
What the heck are we doing, dude? What are we doing? Yeah, beautiful, dude. So, hey, now you are a best ball guy, I guess, right?
Apparently I'm good at this. It's, first lucky charm, first time the charm kind of thing. Yeah, there you go.
Unbelievable, man. Got Deontay Johnson, another guy I like. But yeah, walk us through it. Christian, you don't have to tell us about Christian McCaffrey, but hit us with your thoughts on these next couple of rounds here. You went DK, for those that can't really see the board, DK Metcalf, Kyron Williams, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, DeAndre Hopkins, and Deontay Johnson to go along with Christian McCaffrey. Pretty strong start.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's, half PPR settings. So I want guys that have high touchdown upside. And that's kind of what I wanted to attack in those first, 4 picks or so. I'm very bullish on DK Metcalf this year. I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic in that new system with Ryan Grubb up there in Seattle. And then, I mean, look, we talk all the time in the Club Fantasy Discord about like, oh man, I just missed that Lamar, Mark Andrews stack. Somebody sniped me, blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting here at pick 1 and I'm like, all right, let's see if it comes back to me. Fell right into my lap and I said, I can't pass this up.
Amazing.
So, I mean, again, you talk about the high touchdown upside, Lamar, 2-time MVP, Mark Andrews, perennially his top target there. We know what DeAndre Hopkins can do. Deontay Johnson, obviously a big target guy, not necessarily the big, touchdown guy. But if Bryce Young can take a huge leap this year with the new offensive system and obviously the upgrades at offensive line, I think we can get into that 7-8 touchdown range. And to go with the targets, I'll take it all day.
Hey, Josh, do me a favor, man. Can you blink twice if you're being held hostage somewhere in a very generic, obscure room? Like,
I just haven't decorated my new office yet.
Have the women of fantasy football chained you to a radiator in a room somewhere that you're not allowed out?
He's a minimalist, Howard. He's like
exactly.
the neighbors. He's like the neighbors in Christmas Vacation. Just absolute minimalist, dude.
Hey Josh, do me a favor before we dive more into this draft. I want to give you the opportunity, the platform to kind of share with what you've got going on. Club Fantasy Football, the women of fantasy football, like the full movement, everything like that. Give us a little hype session here for everybody who's just joining the show.
I appreciate that. Most people that know me know that I'm the worst hype person around, but yeah, I mean, everything we do at Club Fantasy FFL, obviously, you can, the website, ClubFantasyFFL.com, all of our socials at Club Fantasy FFL. But more importantly, it's all the great content creators that are, banging out content. We've got shows dropping literally every day of the week now, which is something we've never really had. And that's what pushed us over that 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube for, ever. It's taken us to get there. But hey, you know what? It happened, so that's what matters. And then, of course, everything with women of fantasy football, that's the beauty of being able to build Club Fantasy, is that it serves as a way to better amplify everything that we do with women of fantasy football. Everything that Kelly and Faith have put together, and all the other women that we have on the team. Renee, who represented us at both the Super Bowl and the NFL draft, she's been doing some content with us. Roxanne was at the Super Bowl. Bonnie, we just brought on. Britt was doing her story last year. She's doing some articles with us now. Like, we've just got such a great infrastructure and a team around everything that we do to help amplify these women's voices. Julie and Wendy doing the mock draft show now, and Howard, you were on with Wendy a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
I mean, it's just everything that we're trying to do is just, put women at the forefront. And that to me is really what's the most important thing is, making sure that people know, hey, there are great women in this space and they know what they're doing. And maybe we should start talking about them because they're pretty damn good at this.
I'll tell you, man, I was at the Queen's Classic at the Expo last year, man. And it was just impressive, man. That was a room of sharks, brother. It's so funny to see these guys on Twitter that are like, oh, why are you talking about blah, blah, blah? You know what I mean? Even Cam Newton once said something like, oh, it's funny to see you talking about routes. Any casual gamer in this draft room would have gotten their faces ripped off.
That was an auto pick, and that sucked.
No, yeah. It was that pick did suck.
It was on my queue, but
that pick did suck.
Well,
just ruined everything. You just ruined everything.
Bender, before we get to your stacks and your Will Levis love and all that, I want to ask you because I was looking at the board when you were picking, and somehow all the rookies got stacked up and they were all available there. Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman, Xavier, everyone was available to you, and you chose Brian Thomas. Tell us. You gotta walk us through that one. What are your thoughts, man?
I mean, it's pretty easy to know. And by the way, I just grabbed Rashid Shaheed because I just read this killer article over at fantasyalarm.com about why you want Rashid Shaheed in your lineups this year. I did that. It's kind of funny as far as Jacksonville goes, right? Like for me, I've been locked in on Christian Kirk because his price tag has just been so low. And I've just, there's a reason that they were like, yeah, Calvin Ridley can go. Yeah, Zay Jones can go. We've got Christian Kirk here. He's our number one. And then we're bringing in Brian Thomas. So this was more of like, you know what? Let's just, not so much a hedge, but let's get a little Brian Thomas. This is actually my first share of Brian Thomas out of all of these drafts that I've been doing right now.
Because I always take him. And I'm fully on board with you on that. I would have taken him if he was there. And the thing is, opportunity is just as important as talent in these first couple of years for these players. Some guys get stuck. CeeDee Lamb was the odd man out as a rookie, playing 90% of his snaps in the slot, coming out behind Gallup and Amari Cooper. The opportunity wasn't there. But for guys like Justin Jefferson and Puka Nacua, the opportunity is there right away. This guy, because the Titans paid Calvin Ridley $1 gazillion, the opportunity is there immediately. So that's why, for me, I'm willing to take that stab. I took the stab on, I think I took Keon Coleman there for a similar reason, right? Diggs gone. The opportunity is there. If he falls on his face, he falls on his face. But the possibility of being the next big breakout star is just too enticing. So I got to go there with it. What about you, Eric? Besides Marvin Harrison Jr., who would you say, now that they're all drafted, right? Like Neighbors is gone.
All the rookies are gone.
Yeah, we can talk about it. So who for you do you think could be the number one rookie wide receiver in fantasy this year?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's Ladd McConkey, right? This is a player that's going to come in and really have the lion's share of the workload available to him. Yes, we're talking about a Greg Roman offense that is known for its proficiency on the ground, but it still has the ability, specifically with a volume type player like him, to prop up a wide receiver one in fantasy land.
Well, I'm curious as you're making your pick now here to match up Tajay Spears. I like that pick.
Good pick.
But I'm curious as to your thoughts. Like if Ladd McConkey is going to be getting that lion's share, like I feel like there's so much disrespect against Joshua Palmer. Why do you say McConkey as like what the PPR guy over Palmer when Palmer was the guy who filled in beautifully for Keenan Allen? He filled in beautifully for Mike Williams. Why don't we like Josh Palmer at all?
Yeah, it's not so much that I dislike Josh Palmer. He's certainly the preference over a guy like Quentin Johnston, who couldn't catch anything last year. I think it's really much more about how Ladd McConkey has shown an ability to get open in the short and specifically intermediate part of the field. And despite the absolute cannon of a right arm that Justin Herbert has, he loves throwing for first downs. Like just find a guy on the other side of the chain over the middle of the field, and that's going to be where the ball is going. So I think the way that Herbert implements the offense is going to favor a player who's going to be in position where Ladd McConkey is most likely to be. And obviously separating at the NFL level is a great way to get targets going your way.
Why would you?
Howard, you keep taking my guys and it's pissing me off.
welcome to the show, dude. Welcome to the show, bro. That's literally what we do. Is we do this every week and with the same crew for the most part, and everyone just hurts everybody's feelings. And then we bring people in like you guys and try and hurt your feelings too. That is honestly the show.
We hurt our own feelings.
What did I do to you, Bender?
That's the entire conference. The chat. Ryan Weiss is in here in the chat saying Levis pick. He's saying that now your ego takes a big hit. So yeah, that's all.
I'm trying to go JSN.
That's the whole show, dude. That's the whole show. Welcome.
JSN. Yeah, good luck. Rowdy's sniping everybody left and right.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Oh, and there we go. The hurt people. He takes my pet.
People hurt people. That's what draft season's all about. People hurting people.
Oh man.
Pat Fryermuth. I've written articles about five individual players this year. Which, we have all the capsules. If you go on the draft guide, we have a take on every single player, all the capsules, all that, all the rankings. But I've written a 1,200 word article on just Pat Fryermuth. So of course you're going to come in and take it on my show. Unbelievable.
Well, you took Evan Ingram from me, so
I know you're part of the Evan Ingram crew, so you are certified allowed to draft him. So we're kind of running low on guys I really like here.
You're not kidding.
We've been running low. You know, it's
I'm just thinking rookie
it's
running
so
backs
funny.
now.
So last night, and the article is going to come out right after the 4th of July. I wrote up. I'm writing up. We did a super flex mock draft last night with for the guide. And I don't know what it was. I don't know, I don't know. Maybe it's the drugs. It could be the drugs. But for some inane reason, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Because ADP for the quarterbacks always gets pushed up. So I'm going to go a couple of extra rounds here at the end of the draft just to see what's out there, with the value being pushed down. And we got to probably round 15 or 16. And I was like, I've made a grave mistake here right now. Why in the world am I drafting 18 rounds? It is the player pool gets so grimy towards the end of it. And we're at this spot right now where it's Rome Odunze and Quentin Johnson. Look at that. Icy takes Jerry Jeudy. That guy is just a terrible pick.
I like Jeudy. Icy, I'm with you, dude.
Judy's a bum. It.
They're just grabbing all the worst attitude possible guys over there, huh? It's literally every.
That's what you want for Cleveland. Just
it's amazing. It's amazing when you look around and you say Amari Cooper has the best attitude on the team, because it's Watson and Elijah Moore. It's it really is just a bunch of downers. So yeah, I don't know. And I'll tell you what, no matter how deep you make those drafts, I will complain during the draft, but at the very end, there's always one guy somewhere on the board where I'm like, I wish I had one more pick. Right? Even 22 round FFPC drafts, I'll still be like, I wish I had just one more pick.
No, not me. I'll defer to the other guys. Eric, how deep in a draft do you really want to go?
12-team league. How many rounds? Let's say redraft league. 12-team league redraft. How long? How many rounds should a draft be?
Man, I'm a big proponent of deep benches, right? So my drafts should be a little bit longer in that case, but honestly, I'd say probably about 15 or 16 feels right. You don't want the waiver wire to be completely picked over. You want people to have some decisions there at the end of the draft. So, I like the underdog format of 18 rounds. Get to go a little bit deeper and speculate on some dart throws, but I mean, it gets ugly real quick when you get into those deep teens.
Yeah. I mean, how deep can you get with a short A dot?
Here's what I'm doing. This year. I'm looking
Come on, nobody.
I was chuckling.
I was already thinking about what I was going to say. Sorry.
Dude, was good stuff there. I'm going to have to use that on the Fantasy Alarm show tonight now. Thanks a lot, guys.
Clip it, and edit in the laugh track.
Circumcise it.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, what I was saying is I'm setting my drafts to where I can draft Mark Andrews and Isaiah likely goes to waivers, because too many people are drafting him in real redraft leagues, and I want to have him available in case Mark Andrews gets hurt. So if you're playing real leagues with me, that's where the cutoff is going to be, and no one's allowed to draft Isaiah likely. That's the rules. See him to get steamed up too much. Do you guys, speaking of which, do you guys think there's a world where he does play enough snaps to potentially be fantasy relevant at the same time as Mark Andrews? Eric?
Nope.
No? Josh, quick no?
Nope. I don't really think so, right? I guess they ran enough 12 last year, but they didn't throw the ball a ton, right? So, at the end of the day, there's a math component where if the Ravens are throwing 29 times per game again, it's going to be hard to support two tight ends, especially when one of them is Mark Andrews and should be the likely recipient of most of those targets.
Right. And I just wonder myself, because I'm a big proponent of tight ends, and I know there obviously are some tight ends that are tremendous, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce. I just worry that they're already doing that with Mark Andrews. So now when you put another tight end out there, I feel like maybe you're running the risk of not necessarily running two tight end sets, but actually just having a bad wide receiver out there. Because I don't know, is Isaiah likely a better wide receiver than Rashad Bateman?
That's actually a good question because, I was
Arguable.
sitting there talking about the Ravens the other day, and I'm like, well, besides Andrews and Zay Flowers, like who's stepping up? Is Rashad, because I think from a talent standpoint, I like Rashad Bateman. I think the foot injury has obviously been a huge problem, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Josh, Eric, do you guys like Rashad Bateman at all?
I was big on him coming out.
Same.
I feel like he's been, in a way, underutilized with the Ravens, but I know a big issue with that has been the injuries that have coupled that. So, bringing in Zay Flowers and having him sort of take off the way that he did last year, even with the low ADOT, Mark Andrews obviously getting hurt. I think this could very well be the year that we actually see what this Ravens offense should look like and what, Todd Monken kind of envisions. They did extend Bateman this offseason, which felt a little surprising considering he hadn't done a whole lot. And obviously the injuries being a big part of that. But it's pretty clear that the team believes in him and they want to be able to utilize him. And I think that when you actually create, three top receivers in, a Zay Flowers, a Bateman, and Andrews, they all offer something different that diversifies that offense around what Lamar can do and how it can enhance the running game there, especially now bringing in Derrick Henry. So I'm very interested to see how it plays out. I think we're kind of at a situation with Bateman where he's probably a better real life NFL player than he is a fantasy player for us. But late rounds in best ball, I think you might get a spike week or two, and that's kind of what you're looking for from those late picks.
I'll tell you this right now. If I'm a nickel corner and the formation that comes out is Derrick Henry, Patrick Ricard at fullback, Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely, I am subbing out of the game. I'm getting somebody. I'm bringing another safety, bringing a linebacker. I'm taking myself out, dude, because I just can't imagine what it would be like when, Likely is playing just off the edge of Mark Andrews, and then Patrick Ricard and Derrick Henry come through that line. Business decision time, right?
Eric, what about you on Bateman? Or maybe there's another pass catcher in this Baltimore offense that you think might be worth our while.
Yeah, I don't think I could even offer any notes on the analysis that Josh put forth, right? Like Bateman is a player that I was super high on when he was being drafted and when he's coming into the league, a player that I have a woeful amount of exposure to in Dynasty, but just never really has been able to put it together. And the thing that Josh mentioned that I think we should underscore is don't listen to what these NFL teams say. Watch what they do, right? They had enough confidence in him to go out and sign him to an extension in the midst of one of the more prolific wide receiver drafts that we've seen in recent memory, right? So if they felt like they needed to address the position, they had the opportunity to do so, and they opted for Bateman. So, cause for optimism, sure. Again, this team passed 29 times per game last year, so not a whole lot of volume to support more than one or maybe two pass catchers. They did go out and they drafted Tez Walker, right? But he's much more of kind of a project, right? Like, downfield burner, needs
Very
to refine
weird.
his game a little bit. I don't think that he's going to necessarily hit the fantasy radar, but yeah, I mean, by hook or by crook, Rashad Bateman is clearly their preferred second wide receiving option. It's just I don't think the volume's going to be there to really make him relevant for us.
Yeah, very strange college career for Tez Walker, but that's
Yeah.
what happened, right? But that's what happened to a lot of the COVID guys, right? Eric,
Mhm.
like he went to like North Carolina Central or something, and they just canceled the season, and then they were going to not play the next year. So then he went to Kent State and did well there, and then went to was it UNC? Eric, he transferred
Yeah,
again.
UNC.
Yeah, so he transferred around to 3 different schools because of the way everything was bouncing around. And you know what? Did enough. I do appreciate that he did well at Kent State and then did just as good on a per game basis at UNC. And I think at one point they were telling me he couldn't play, like that he had transferred too much and like the portal stuff. Very strange player, but I mean the Ravens have a pretty good history of finding decent guys, so we'll have to see. But for now, I don't know. Bateman best ball only, and all this talk makes me really like Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers. I think that's where I'm settling in on it, right?
For real.
So coming up on the 14th round here. My team is something special. Talk about going 0 RB. I have Derrick Henry and 3 rookie running backs.
I have one less running back than you, Coop.
Yeah, I know. You and me down here. So we're just hitting the wrong side of these rushes at certain players,
There have been some wild runs in this room. I'm 78 teams into best ball summer so far, and I haven't seen a room like this quite yet. The family gets crazy in here. I love it.
They get mean though. All my players are taken. I'm just taking wide receivers I don't need.
Not surprisingly, tight ends are a bit steamed up in the fantasy alarm room.
Go figure. Howard and Coop drafting here.
All the ones I like are gone. All the ones I hate available. There's a couple guys. Howard has really been pushing me to draft different players by taking the players that I like. So, which has been good. The 2 tight end draft, I really learned a lot about myself on that one, Howard. We did a 12-team Independence Day. Shout out America, greatest country in the world. It's a tradition Howard's been doing for a long time. I was lucky enough to sneak in for the first time this year as a 2 tight end draft. And my goodness, I was not ready for the tight end heat coming out of this draft. But it really made me sit and think like, okay, when 30 tight ends are gone, who am I taking? You know what I mean? And we learned a lot. And you know what? After that draft, Howard, I moved a player up a little bit in my rankings. Player that hopefully I'm going to be able to get here. I'll let you guys know when he comes off the board. That's a little teaser.
I was just going to say, who is it? But you obviously don't want 30 picks to go by and you not getting them again.
Exactly. And now all the people, fantasy line members watching the show are taking their guesses. Rowdy just took Greg Dulcich, who I do like, but it's not Dulcich. I already had him fairly high. So
I'm just going to say this right now. Drafting in between Icy Through and Rowdy is probably one of the worst spots to be if you're drafting in a family draft. Like these two have just been like, I'm taking haymakers left and right.
Icy. I already said it earlier. I said it earlier. Icy's banned. Next time we do this, no Icy, no Hamburger, no Ann, no Ponch. We're doing all new people. No Luke. Luke, you're out too. We're doing no one. We're refreshing this with no alarm members. They got to take a little break. So I get all my guys for once. That's it. That's what's happening, Howard.
All right, we're just going to turn selfish now, and that's it. Forget about everything that I've said. I went on this whole tirade on the show last night, how it's more important for me, for subscribers, viewers, listeners, everything like that, for them to win. Right. Like I care more about like somebody telling me that they won a fantasy championship or you cashed a bet or whatever using my advice than about my own bankroll or anything like that. I'm completely taking that back right now. Screw you all. Give me my guys. Stop making my life more.
They're helping you diversify, Bender.
Well, that's the plan. That's what I did that's how I started with Coop last year. We were doing a bunch of these drafts, and what I started doing for a mock draft for the draft guide was I started taking like all of Coop's guys. Like if he tweeted about them, if he wrote up a player profile, anything like that, and I took them before and after, Coop was going, just so I could see where he shifted to next, because that's always the big question. I'm sure you guys get it too, Eric, Josh, like when people are like, these are the 5 guys that you recommended and they're all off the board all of a sudden, like, where do I go? And that's kind of what I've, pushed Coop to do. Like getting out of the comfort zone, I think that's probably, to me, it's the best tool for preparing for your home league draft, doing like a mock draft where you don't take any of your guys. You always look to see what else happens.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, doing that and doing these drafts, it's like swinging with the weighted bat on. You know what I mean? Because in the Scott Fish Bowl, that's what Mike Fiala does anyway, Howard. Same thing you're talking about. Just goes through the tweets, picks all my players. So it's a beautiful thing. You guys doing Scott Fish Bowl this year while we're talking. This is a big charity show, big America show, big equality show. You guys doing live drafts for the Scott Fish Bowl? Or you guys doing online drafts? What's your setup, Josh?
Yeah, I'm doing. I'm actually going to New York City for the live draft up there.
New York City.
Faith and I are going to be up there. Ryan will also be up there drafting, so it'll be a nice little like Club Fantasy WAF reunion. It'll be good because I'm not going to be able to go to the expo this year, so this is kind of like my Yeah. But I'm also going to be at the Orlando live draft this coming Sunday. So gonna get to experience both of those setups. So
Are you allowed in Orlando? I heard that you got kicked out of Disney World for feeling goofy.
There it is, dude.
Well, it would make sense because I haven't been to Disney World in over 10 years. So
There it is.
Not within 500 feet of the Magic Kingdom.
Perfect interruption into our charity draft discussion.
You know, sometimes you got to do it. Well, because here we are. We're last 2 rounds here. Let's start talking about some of these favorite late round picks. I don't know if Tyrone Tracy was one of yours, Coop, but you know, Josh just grabbed Trey Sermon. You know, and here we are, last couple of rounds here. Where are you guys going? Josh, is Sermon a guy you target late?
Not necessarily. I was mostly just looking at, holy crap, I only have 4 running backs and we're in the 17th round.
Just math.
So math was just kind of mathing on that one. But I was trying to line up bye weeks a little bit because the other guys that I was looking at were all week 12 buys. And I've got Kendre Miller and Tyler Algier both on week 12. But at the end of the day, if McCaffrey and Kieran Williams are both healthy for the majority of the season, none of those guys are really playing for me anyway, since we're starting to running back. So, but I mean, you know, Jonathan Taylor's missed time the last 2 years. Running backs never stay healthy. I have zero trust in, I think it's Evan Hall is the other Colts running back in that room. Trey Sermon, you know, I know he came out with some rookie hype being drafted by San Francisco, but he's fit well in the Shane Steichen system, even playing with the Eagles. So I have zero issue taking a chance on him there in the 17th.
How about you, Eric, as things start to kind of creep up to your pick? Last couple of picks. By the way, I love the Theo Johnson pick. I love the Theo Johnson pick. So tell me, you know, like once you get to make this next pick, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on Theo Johnson and where you like to go with these last couple of rounds. Because that Jet stack, it's got a little stank on it there with Rodgers and Corley, but Theo, I can definitely dig on that.
Yeah, I'm sitting here really. I'm getting the Howard Bender effect as Rowdy Snipes, Javon Baker for me. One of my favorite last 2 rounds of the draft targets this offseason. A lot of times it's really more of a practical consideration, right? Looking where I have a little bit too much exposure to a given bye week, looking to where I need to round out some positional coverage, right? So, you know, it's less razzle dazzle and looking for that dart throw and more so making sure I don't have any gaping holes in my build overall. So going with DeMarcus Robinson here, largely because I think we're going to see another really solid offensive season for the Rams. Also because he has a bye week other than week 12 where I've got way too many players sitting in. And then for Theo Johnson, you know, tight ends flew off the board in a way that I wasn't fully prepared for. So I was trying to find a little bit of upside at the position, but also, you know, Coop said that he at least alluded to a later round tight end that he liked. So I was trying to see if I could hit the bingo there and get the right player he was talking about.
So I do like Theo Johnson. I think that's a great pick. I actually took Theo Johnson in our 2 tight end draft the other day that we did. Then I took the guy I was alluding to is the one I just took. I had 4 guys in my queue, 3 were quarterbacks. I took this tight end, Hayden Hurst, and then all 3 of my quarterbacks went bing, bang, boom right after my pick with Drake May, Bryce Young, and Russell Wilson. Shout out you guys. But Hayden Hurst, to me, when I look around at what that team wants to do, you know, they lost multiple wide receivers, pretty much all of them. And, you know, when you look at guys like Luke Schoonmaker and AJ Barner and the guy they have now, Colston Loveland at Michigan, like Harbaugh is and again, Greg Roman has a top 5 tight end season all time for Mark Andrews on his resume. Like I look at that and I say, okay, there's upside here for a tight end potentially. Like who's it going to be? I've been digging through and seeing what people are saying. Right, Donald Parham to me is more of a blocking tight end, more of a touchdown dependent guy if he's going to do that. Will Disley came out and said that he's a mauler and he's a blocker. And he personally said, I work for Gus Edwards, right? They brought him in to block. Hayden Hurst, not only is he the best pass catching tight end on the team, But I've been reading reports that when they do OTAs and they do these practices, he's the guy that ends up leading in receptions a lot of days. One of the practices the other day, he had 7 receptions. So to me, as much as I'm rooting for Stone Smart, our favorite Stone Cold Smart, I think Hayden Hurst could possibly be the starting tight end and the best pass catching tight end on a team who their wide receivers are a rookie in Ladd McConkey and Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston. I mean, from day one, he could be a big part of that offense. And that's what we do in those late rounds is we say, we look for uncertainty and we say, why not? Why can't this guy be a guy? So Hayden Hurst is the guy. I moved him up a little bit in the rankings, and all those rankings are available now over at fantasyalarm.com. Get yourself a draft guide, get yourself an all-pro, and guess what? 4 people that get the draft guide coming out later this week, either later this week or very early next week, in the dynamic tier rankings, my yin and yang tight end rankings will be in there as well. The write-ups are coming later, but if you have drafts coming up, those rankings will be in there. So my linear rankings and the yin and yang tight end rankings are available now at fantasyalarm.com. All pro, baby. Go Fantasy Alarm. Go America. USA. USA. USA.
Now, Josh, for whatever reason, the Mr. Irrelevant never shows up on the underdog draft board here. So hit the like button. Hit
like
it,
button,
hot it, whatever you want to do.
Hit that hot like button right now, baby. Woo.
Wow, Josh, like you take your hat off there, you look like the kid from the new Ghostbusters movies now. You look like that kid.
I love
podcast.
that you call me a kid, that I look that young. I appreciate that.
Beautiful. So who is Mr. Irrelevant here that's not showing up on the draft board?
So I was waffling between 2, mostly to kind of play the stat game. I was eyeing Nelson Aguilar because it seems like Lamar Jackson has a love affair with him. But I feel like Kendrick Bourne is being like a forgotten guy in this New England Patriots wide receiver room. Mm-hmm. And to get him at the 18-12, that's who I ended up going with. I like the potential there as a reliable target in a room full of youngsters and a young quarterback that could very well use a reliable presence. And he was averaging close to 8 targets a game last year before he got hurt. So I'll take that value all day.
It's going to be crazy when we all take all these stabs and guesses and the top wide receiver ends up being Juju.
100%.
Don't ever wish that even.
Why do you say stuff like that?
Seriously.
Like now you're just saying that to upset everybody.
Like a wicked witch, dude. Like,
damn. Now I gotta get rid of this draft board here. Let's get everybody's beautiful smiling faces here.
Sorry I said that, everybody. God bless America.
You're not sorry. We know you're not sorry.
I'm not
you
sorry
will
at
be
all.
sorry, young man.
Young man. You will be. All right, we've reached that part of the show, folks. I know we've had so much fun here. We're going to be doing these. I think next week, Howard and I are taking a break to do a Best Ball Mania team, and then we'll get everybody back in the fold. Yeah,
we're huddling up.
We're huddling up. We're going to team up. He and I are going to put our minds together. We're going to argue it out and draft the winning Best Ball Mania team. But then following that, we're going to get back doing these. I think I'm going to do a little slow draft for our friends in Hawaii and in Vegas on one of the other sites. So look out for that. But folks, Eric and Josh both have incredible things they're doing in this community, not just fun leagues to be a part of, but actual charitable and difference-making things that they're doing. So Eric, once again, tell everybody where they can find you and what you got going on and how they can get involved.
Yeah, so if you, for whatever weird reason, want to read some of the words I put out there, you can find all of my work over at my personal Twitter. It's at FantasyNav. But the real important stuff to mention is Pros with Joe's, like I mentioned before, heading into year number 5 somehow. I don't know how that is a thing, but we're doing it, and we're getting ready to ramp up registration. Actually, I was thinking about this throughout the show. The family has been so good to Pros with Joe's over the years. I can let you all in on a little secret. If you go to proswithjoes.com right now, you can actually already register for the 5th year of Pros with Joe's. So if you're hanging out late, go to proswithjoes.com. You can scroll down on that homepage, and there's our registration form. Coop's back. Hoping to have Howard back. I saw John.
What are you hoping to have Howard? Of course I'm back. Wait, seriously?
Of course he's back.
Come
John
on.
And Pemba. Raising money against Howard.
Never to assume anything.
Raising money against Howard and John.
Pemba in the chat. He's one of our day ones.
Yeah, it's tough raising money against John and Howard because people go in there and it's like, oh, do I pick Coop? Do I pick Howard? Do I pick John? And Howard and John's charities are both for dogs and puppies and stuff, and there's dogs and puppies.
Yeah, you can't stop that.
It's just I don't blame him.
That sounds.
Sometimes
like
I hover it
me,
over, and I'm
guy.
like, maybe I'll donate 30 to dogs. It's just, Good stuff. Yeah, there it is.
That's Bender's business background coming into play. He knows what
He
people
knows the
want.
other people like. I look at it too, and I'm like, geez, all right. Well, I'll give it a little bit.
Dogs are better than people. Fact.
I mean,
1000% agree with
making
you
a lot
on
of
that one.
sense.
Fact.
Making a lot of sense up here.
Well, speaking
Dogs
of
are better than
people, though, Josh also doing a lot to support people in this community. Josh, once again, tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on, how they can support y'all.
Yeah, you can find me. My personal is at the one Hudsonian, but everything I do is at ClubFantasyFFL and at women_FF. We have our big Women of Fantasy Football event that goes on during the month of August. So we'll have 4 shows of the WAF podcast featuring great guests, great female guests across the industry. Just kind of hearing stories, and we'll be doing a series of raffles that raise money towards our WAF Galvanize Scholarship. If you're unfamiliar with Galvanize, it's an organization that was founded by NFL on Fox sports reporter Laura Oakman. And the whole premise of it is to provide women in sports media the tools that she did not have when she was originally breaking into the industry. This year, we were able to grant 4 different scholarships to women that attended her Galvanize camps with the Washington Commanders and the San Francisco 49ers. So, just keep that in mind when we start raffling off all those jerseys. The more money we raise, the more women we get to help out next summer. So once again, follow all that action at women_FF on Twitter and Instagram, as well as ClubFantasyFFL.com
And I'll
and
throw down
WomenOfFantasyFootball.com.
I'll throw down a breaking news comment here right now. During the MLB All-Star break, when Jim Bowden takes off to cover MLB, that's the Women of Fantasy Football Week at Fantasy Alarm on the Fantasy Alarm Show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I bring in a parade of co-hosts for the week, all from the Women of Fantasy Football. It's exposure that needs to happen, and the shows are always great. It's always an amazing crew of people, and I look forward to having my co-host there. So that's July 15th through the 19th on the Fantasy Alarm Show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Awesome. So go subscribe to Sirius, everybody, because Bender's a real one.
For real. So he's Howard Bender. Follow him on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy. Find him on Sirius XM. And I'm Andrew Cooper. You can find me here in America, the greatest country in the world. Thanks, everyone, for